Welcome to Mark D. Maker. My name is Mark Taylor, and today we're going to be carving to the round a wood blank. Come on over to the workbench. Let's get started. Here's the blank we will be carving out today. Now, I cut this blank out and made a video of it. It's called Cutting Out a Wood Blank. So to carve to the round, I'm going to draw a center line all the way around this on all sides, across the top and across the bottom. That'll give me a really good reference. We're going to carve, we're going to start on these corners and we're going to do 45 cuts and then round from line to line. So now I'm going to take a pattern, and you should always have your pattern available when you're doing the carving. I make multiple patterns when I make them. One when I cut them out, blow them up a little bit more, and I use that as a reference as I'm doing my carving. Here I'm looking at the center line that I drew on the pattern and referencing the arm off of it. So I can get the arm relatively close. I'll change it a little bit later, but initially you can do this, or you can take your original pattern, cut out the arm, and just stick it on here and draw around it. I'm finding the place in the back where the bow is. And we'll be cutting out those to either side of the bow. And we get started carving. Now while carving, you see how smooth and polished those lines are. You have to be careful that you don't split. And here's an example. See this? That's splitting off. Now you can use that as an advantage because it really moves quickly. Look how quick, that goes. But you really want to keep an eye on the grain, because if it splits and breaks off in an area that you wanted to keep, the only way to get it back on there is a little wood glue, line it up. I'll be covering wood carving repairs in a later video, so if you botch up a carving, don't throw it away. Put it in a box and we'll get to it, and I'll show you how to repair botched carvings. I'm just roughing out the arms here. Kind of using this, it's an X-Acto blade. Kind of using it like a chisel there. So I started just rounding off all the corners all the way around this carving. Now you can see on the front here how I've rounded it off, and I'm coming across to from the side center line to the front center line. You can see how the top is starting to round out there. That's real important, and that's something that I would tell all new carvers. You're going to remove more than you think you need to. If your finished carvings are boxy or squarish looking, carve to the round. Carve from that side center line to the center, front line, and you do that all the way around the carving until you get a nice curve rounded. You do a quarter of the carving basically at a time, work your way all the way around it. Now, when you first start carving, it's a real concentrated effort. You're paying close attention, at least you better pay close attention so you don't cut yourself. You're constantly thinking, uh, where's the blade going? Is it headed towards my finger? Am I bridged? In other words, is there support in case this slips? Your hand should always be supported by your other hand, your thumb braced somehow. Later on when we're carving, you'll see me even set it down on the cutting board and brace my hand against the cutting board as I make the cut. There's different ways of bracing when you're doing cutting, and that's a key. You really want to always brace. You just don't want to fling your blade around. It always should be supported. Here you can see my thumb pushing it. So I have my whole right hand holding that blade and controlling it, and my left thumb there pushing and guiding it. So here we're going to draw the nose in. And these are stop cuts. And that's a paring cut. So I'm showing there the sideline of the face, and I'm carving to the round, to the front of the face. So you can get a round shape. After you've been carving for a while, a lot of these things come natural to you, and it becomes almost meditative. It becomes a very relaxing, enjoyable hobby. And there's something about wood carvers and woodworkers. They are very, very usually kind people, and they're willing to share their secrets. Now, a lot of some of the other arts, they're protective about techniques or what they do or how they do something. But it just seems like the woodworking and wood carving community is a very sharing group of people that like to share their knowledge, which is a great thing. So I encourage you to continue to look around on YouTube at wood carvers. There's some particular wood carvers that I really enjoy watching. Gene Mercer is a very good teacher, and he does really nice wood carvings characters. Doug Linker does really nice work, especially he's only been carving for 2-3 years, and he's turning out fabulous pieces. There's a YouTube channel called Sharon My Art. She does these little people, does a beautiful job on them. She sells videos, and she sells basswood. That's a source of basswood. And she teaches how to do these little carvings. A lot of them very cute. Then you have realistic carvers, people that carve wildlife and realism. Uh, my favorite carver when it comes to rafters and owls, and teaching color theory, airbrush technique is Floyd Schultz. If you can find any videos that he does, and he sells videos, DVDs, and also if you go online to Wild Fowl Carving magazine, they feature a lot of Floyd Schultz stuff there. Now you have to be careful around the top of this chef's hat. The grain is running vertical on it, and therefore it's very fragile. There's not a whole lot of vertical surface. It turns in kind of like into a horizontal surface, and the grain is running vertical, so it could split off very easily. And if it does, you can wood glue it back on, and then you can try carving it the next day. But just a word of caution there. Now I'm not following this pattern to a T. I'm gonna make them clean cut. Most chefs that I know are a clean cut. I know a few chefs. A few of them are very good, and I admire them. I admire chefs. Their ability to do what they do. I used to watch Great Chefs of the West. It used to be on a PBS special, or a PBS television show that used to come on, and they would show the chefs of the West cooking, and always admired them. Here I decide to change the position of the hand a little bit into a more natural stance. Bending the elbow, putting the hand forward. And I'm thinking maybe I'll put something in his hand later on. Maybe a pot or a rolling pin or something. So I'm doing a stop cut here. And I'm really just splitting this off. But I'm making sure that that stop cut is there first. Of course, this is sped up 2 times the speed. Some carvers, they get on there and they carve from the beginning to the end in less than 30 minutes. I just don't see how they do it. So basically, I'm going to do both arms the same way and start to round out the arms. So I'd like to take a second here and show you a little bit about knife sharpness. This is a dull knife blade. You see how it jumps when you dig into the wood and it's not cutting? And it's not cutting smooth here at all, and I'm having to put a lot of pressure behind it. That's what makes it dangerous. Now, I'll put in a sharp blade here, and I ran it across the strap, and look how easy that cuts. No effort. So smooth. Maximum control, even across the end grain. End grain can be hard to cut, but with a fresh blade, even the end grain cuts effortless. Always have a sharp blade. right, so we're going to round out the arms now. And we're simply going to round to that center line there. The whole arm. All right, so we got the arms rounded out. And now it's time to draw in the chef's apron. Now when we cut the definition between the chef and the apron, it doesn't have to be all that deep. We're just creating a shadow line. Shadow line is how our eyes see the difference between different surfaces. So I'm going straight in, doing like a plunge cut here, not very deep. Just following the line for the apron, and going to just pare away the wood ever so slightly so it looks like the shirt is underneath of the apron. Makes the apron stand a little proud. So when you go to paint this, that will be a decent shadow line. You'll be able to see that. It'll look believable. Always think about when you're carving what the paint is going to look like on that. All right, let's take a look at the bow. Now the bow, since we don't have a rear view of the chef, that is up to our imagination. We have to create the bow on our own. We have the wood there. The pattern provided the wood to be there, but we have to come up with what it would look like. So every once in a while in a pattern, it's left to your imagination to figure out what it's going to look like, what's going to be there. So I'm just drawing in a bow and two pieces of cloth hanging down off of it. And let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. So we'll start off just like we started with everything else. We do our initial stop cuts here, basically outlining the bow with the knife, trying to keep the knife at a 90-degree angle. And then once we have the stop cuts, we can come in at an angle and relieve just a little bit of wood at a time. Patience. Don't try to remove all the wood at once. This is supposed to be an enjoyable thing where you take your time. If you start rushing, you're not going to be satisfied with the results. And you could cut yourself. So just take your time, relax, enjoy the process. So I drew in the pant line where the hem goes around the lower part of the leg, rests on the shoe. This will make a big difference in the carving itself. This will bring realism to it. Brings detail down to the lower part, and also for some reason it always adds weight to the bottom of it. Like it looks believable. It's an important detail. And don't forget that every 15 to 20 minutes you want to give your blade a strop. If you keep it stropped, you won't have to worry about sharpening it on a stone. It's just easier to strop it every once in a while and not have to worry about putting it on a stone. So here I'm pretty much have my little character done. Now some people would leave it just like this. But on this particular character, I'm going to sand him just a little bit. I'll leave the facet marks in, but I'm just taking the peaks off. All right, so lightly sanded them, and this is how I'm going to leave them. I'm going to paint them up, and that'll be in the next video. Please like, share, subscribe. I'll see you next time.